Again, welcome back to C++ programming language. This is Unit 2, lecture number 4. Our main objective here is to describe the software development process. Normally, when we have a project to develop a software, most likely we want to solve a problem with it, or we may try to develop a software for entertainment. So normally we have to understand what the software, or what is the main objective, what the software will be doing. So that will be the requirement specification. In the requirement specification, we want to understand the problem and what are the requirements. For example, we may have a functional requirement. A functional requirement will be the task or the functions that the software would perform. For example, if we are developing a library system, a library management system, maybe one of the functions is to check in a textbook or check out a textbook or update the inventory system. Then also we have non-functional requirements. A non-functional requirement will be the quality, or I would say the characteristics of the software. For example, if we are developing a software for a non-profit organization, or let's say a Catholic church, most likely we are not going to be concerned with the security. We may rather concern with the performance or user friendliness, more easy to use. But if we are developing a software for a banking industry, let's say a Citibank or Chase Bank, here a lot of money is involved. So security will be an issue. Performance, we can sacrifice performance of the system in order to improve the security. So that will be the requirement phase. Now, when we get all the possible requirements, both inputs, output, etc., then we move to the system analysis. This is where we analyze the system. What are the inputs? What are the requirements? More detail. Then we move to the design phase. This is where we are going to design the system, either writing the algorithms or using some tools that may allow us to design the system. Then the implementation phase, this is where we are going to use our C++ programming language to develop or implement the system. After we implement the system, we need to test it in case there's any errors or bugs, etc. Then we move to deployment. If we are able to achieve the testing and there's no more errors, then we move to operation. Then during operation, we may do maintenance. So let's go through the step one at a time. So we start with the requirements specification. Here we say the formal process that seeks to understand the problem and also document in detail what the software system needs to do. This phase involves close interaction between the users and the designers. For example, the system analysis and those who are going to use the system, or the project stakeholders. So most of the examples in our textbooks are very simple. So we don't really need a requirement, or the requirements are clearly stated. For example, write a program to find the sum of two numbers. We don't need to go through all this process. But mostly in the real world where we have a very large, complex problem, then we need to take our time step by step. Now, the next is the system analysis. So here we seek to analyze the business process in terms of data flow, and also to identify the user's input and output. Now, the process of converting input to output is where we move to the next phase, which is the system design phase. So part of the analysis entails modeling the system behavior. So the model is intended to capture the essential elements of the system and also to define the services to the system. So the design phase, this is where we are the process of designing the system components, converting the inputs to output. So this phase involves the use of many levels of abstraction to decompose the problem into manageable components. We need to identify the classes, the interfaces, the relationship between the classes, etc. So here we can come out using the Unified Modeling Language, the UML diagram, which consists around 14 diagrams to, again, design the system. One of the diagrams will be the class diagram. We are going to identify all the classes, design them, We also have the activity diagrams, and etc. So after we finish with the design, then we move on to implementation phase. So again, in the implementation phase, this is where we are going to write the code. So this is the process of translating the system design into programs. So mostly the first phase, from requirements specification to system design, we may have a system analysis who will do all this work. Then the implementation phase is where the programmer will look at the documents that the system analysis developed or created, and from there convert the design to coding. So after coding, we need to test the system. We have different types of testing. For example, unit testing, whereby we test each component. We may have integrated testing, alpha testing, etc. So the goal of a testing is to ensure that code meets the requirements specification, and also possible we identify all the errors and weed out all the bugs. So if this is done correctly, then we move to the deployment. So this is the phase that we are going to put the system into operation. So deployment makes the project available for use. Here we say for Java applet, this means that installing it on the web server for Java application, or installing it on the client computer. And C++ also installing it on the client computers. Then during the operations, we may have to do some maintenance, maybe improve the coding or come up with a new version. So maintenance is concerned with changing and improving the products. A software product also must continue to perform and improve in a changing environment. And this requires periodic upgrade of the product to face newly discovered bugs and also incorporate changes. Example will be the Microsoft Windows. Sometimes again, we may receive a message that we should download a new software, new features that will improve our operating system. Now, these are some of the common errors that are made in not only in C++, but almost every major programming language. One of the common error, you didn't declare variable before you use it. So undeclare or uninitialized variables and unused variables also. Also, integer overflow. For example, I have a large number. Instead of using the long data type, which can hold the large numbers, I use a short or int, which means the value I have is too large for the data type that I chose. In this case, we are going to have overflow of data. And this may have an error, give us error. Even if it doesn't give us error, the output will not be a good result because it cannot hold the actual value. Also, we have a runoff errors, unintended integer division, and also forgetting the header files. This mostly will happen in C++. For example, I want to use the CMAT because I'm using built-in mathematics function that C++ gave us. But again, I forget to include the CMAT header files. So that will be the completion of these lectures. And we'll see you in the next lectures, which we will start with the selection statements. Thank you.